this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that you need to book hundreds of calls from cold email. And I'm going to break everything down step by step so it's really easy for you to apply to your campaigns right now. However, this isn't going to be some crazy complex strategy, yet we still use it to book hundreds of calls for our clients every single month. And honestly, the best part of the whole thing is that it works for any industry. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to use it to start booking calls from cold email. However, before you can start sending anything, you need to set up your email accounts correctly. And truthfully, this is the step that most people mess up because they either end up sending everything from one account or they set up multiple accounts and they just end up sending way too many emails from each one of them. And when that happens, you obviously won't book a single call because most of your emails are going to end up in spam. So let me tell you how to set your emails up the right way. So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out how many emails that you need in the first place. If you want to book hundreds of calls, let's just make it simple and say 100 calls in a month, you're going to want to set up an infrastructure that's capable of reaching 100,000 contacts. And basically what we used this calculator for was to determine that with 100,000 contacts, a modest 2% reply rate, pretty standard 10% positive response rate, and a 50% meeting book rate, that you will see 100 booked meetings. What we also use this calculator for is to determine how many email accounts we need if we want to book 100 calls. So with 100 meetings booked, essentially what it's going to look like, and you can kind of determine what you want your split between Google and Outlook here to be, but let's just say we want it to be a 70-30 split, 70% Outlook. I've been liking Outlook lately, so just kind of my preference. And 30% Google. What that ends up being is 4,762 cents per day, assuming that you're sending for the average of like 21 business days, which is what a typical month has. And this is what it'll look like. So you'll need 72 Google domains and 7 Outlook domains. Each Google domain can set up 2 accounts, and each Outlook domain can set up 99 accounts. And this is gonna depend provider by provider. But once you have this set, we know roughly we need 79 total domains and 837 accounts. Now, I know most of you are thinking that that's probably gonna be pretty expensive. And I think I calculated the cost for the account specifically in the domains to be in like the $1,200 range. But when you look at it from a cost per call perspective, $1,200 for 100 meetings in a month, not really too expensive. But regardless, next thing you're going to want to do is jump into Porkbun. This is going to be your domain provider. You can realistically use any domain provider here, but again, this is our preference. You're going to want to jump into register new domain and use the bulk search. If you are new to creating domains, I'd probably use ChatGPT to help you come up with a couple ideas. I just jumped in here and basically said, create 79 different variations of growth layer. I asked them to use .info. When it comes to purchasing domains for email sending accounts, especially at this scale, like you want to use what's economical. So for us, .info accounts are around $3. Sometimes .co will go on sale for around $3 as well, and you can use those. But you're going to want to stray away from like the $12 to $50 domains, obviously, if you're buying 79 of them. And we've done, hundreds of tests across clients, and the difference in performance from a .info to a .co to a .com is marginal at this scale. But regardless, once you put in this prompt, you'll have your 79 domains. You're going to want to ask it to do a few things like, maintain the core domain, keep that intact, use like short prefixes or suffixes just so it doesn't get too long. But once you have it all, you're going to want to copy them and pull them over into your domain registrar. There's often going to be situations where you throw them in and then, some of them have already been purchased or some of them have already been taken. But you'll just keep putting it in back and forth until you get to that 79 number that you want. All right, cool. So we have our 79 domains. Going to come to around $200 if you choose .info. Again, to some that might seem expensive, but 2 things. One, like that's a yearly subscription, so that's going to cover you for the entire year as long as you keep the domains healthy. And 2, when you think about it from an ROI perspective, $200 to kickstart the process of booking, hundreds of calls, again, marginal. Then once you have your domains, you're going to want to jump in and purchase the actual accounts themselves. This is going to be a split between Google and Microsoft, and you'll likely want to use a different provider for both. There are platforms that allow you to buy both Google and Outlook accounts on one platform, like Mailer, or if you want to jump into Scaled Mail and test them as well. Those make the process a little bit simpler if you want to have it all done under one roof, but it's really kind of your decision on which direction you want to go. There's going to be some options that are cheaper, some that are more expensive, some that have better customer service, other different benefits there as well. So definitely weigh out your options. All right, so to keep it simple, I'm just going to show you the process in Mailer. For each provider, it's all going to be very similar. It's just a form that you fill out with domain information. They make it super easy. So with Mailer, you're going to want to choose Google or Microsoft. I'll use Microsoft for this one. You're going to enter your domain name. You're going to enter the forwarding URL. You're going to choose the display name, and then you're going to choose the workspace that you want it to be sent to. Once that's all set, you're going to click order inboxes, and then you pretty much just have to wait from there. They'll get put into the sending platform of choice that you have set up, and then from there you can begin warming. So once the email accounts are in your sending tool, you're going to want to set the warming settings. So for Outlook, you're going to want to send roughly 5 to 7 warming emails per day. And then for Google, you're probably going to want to do something like 10 warm-up emails per day. Every single infrastructure provider is just going to give you their set of instructions, so just keep an eye out for those to be sent after you submit the order. Now, setting up infrastructure like this can obviously be a bit of a headache if you've never really done it before, but without it, like if you don't do it the right way, you'll obviously end up in the spam folder. So if you don't want to spend weeks trying to figure all this stuff out, messing with all the order forms and the DNS records and DKIM records and stuff like that, you can book a call below. We've helped clients like TripAdvisors book 47 calls in just 45 days, and we'll see if we can do the same for you. So if that is something that you're interested in, just book a call below. But either way, building the infrastructure is just the beginning, because obviously if you're emailing the wrong people, you're not going to be talking to potential clients. And this is a mistake I see all the time. Most people pull random contacts from Apollo using just like the industry filter, or they'll buy some sketchy lists and then they'll wonder why nobody replies. But the reality is your lead list is just as important, if not more important, than your infrastructure, because your emails could be landing in their inbox, but if they're landing in the inbox of the wrong person, they're obviously not going to book you any calls. So here's how I'd recommend building your lead list the right way. First thing you're going to want to do is jump into a platform like Apollo, but again, using it the right way. You're going to want to input the job titles that you're focusing on, so determine who the decision maker is. You're going to want to add location filters to determine where you're looking, employee count filters to determine the size of the company, and then again, the right way of using Apollo is primarily through keywords. If you have a hard time coming up with keywords on both the inclusion and the exclusion side, you can jump into a tool like ChatGPT and just ask it to whip up a bunch of keywords for you. So in this case, I just built out a list of accountants as an example to show you guys, but I asked for a ton of comma separated keywords, relevant job titles. It pretty much came up with the exact criteria for me. And then I noticed a few software companies in there, and I got it to set up an exclusion list for me as well. So again, all you have to do is ask a few questions to ChatGPT. You can get a really solid list. And you can see in this case, we have just about 100,000 contacts, which is exactly what we calculated out to be for, that 100 book calls per month. You'll probably want to make it a little bit bigger, just to account for any sort of loss when you verify the emails. So just keep that in mind, but just for the sake of this video, I've kept it around 91K. And then once you have your list set, you're obviously going to want to scrape that so you can actually use the company data and export it without paying Apollo a ton of money. So grab your URL from Apollo and bring it over into a tool like Ample Leads. You want to choose how many leads you want. So in this case, we'll say up to 100,000, and then you'll want to name it. And then you'll start scraping. Obviously, you have to make sure that you have enough credits for that list size and purchase those ahead of time. But once you have it, all you have to do, start scraping, and then you'll get a CSV. Once the CSV is set, you'll want to pull it into something like Clay. You can use Clay to do things like normalize domains, and then enrich for various different personalizations. In this case specifically, we pulled both the industry, so that's the industry of the actual company that we're reaching out to ensure that they were actually accounting firms, to the ideal customer of the prospect that we're reaching out to. Again, these personalizations are just going to be a way to enhance the copy and make it look like we did a bit of our homework. And then lastly, you're obviously going to want to verify your accounts. So use a tool like Million Verifier or one of those within Clay, just to ensure that those that you're reaching out to are actually valid emails. But once you have your personalizations, once you have everything normalized, all of the data is like cleaned up, verified, and ready to go, you want to jump into the email copy. Now, most people get these leads and then they either send emails that are way too long or they're way too pitch heavy and, refuse to send any sort of value up front. But in 2025, that sales heavy approach is getting harder and harder to pull off because prospects are more aware than ever, which means anything that looks like a pitch is just going to get ignored. So while everybody's writing these long personalized emails, I'm just going to do the opposite. I keep them short, simple, and in some ways boring. And truthfully, those are the emails that end up getting replies because they just don't look like a sales pitch. So let me show you exactly how to write them. Jumping into my email sequencer here, I've wrote a few examples of what I wanted to show you guys. So pretty much what it's going to be is a simple one-liner with a PS line. The one-liner is pretty much just going to be the front end offer, which again is not super pitch heavy. The idea is going to be that you're going to offer something free. In this case, I said if we could run one outbound campaign for you to prove that it's an effective mechanism to acquire new clients in the ICP space. Again, we used that personalization back in Clay that we pulled using AI and Claygent. Would that be worth a quick chat? So essentially the idea being that it looks like we know exactly who their ideal customer is. We did our research. We understand their ICP. It's short, to the point, looks like a text coming from a friend, no pitch, value first, and we're not giving them homework. Like if you send in a long email, you're essentially giving a prospect homework, and the odds that they end up putting any sort of effort into something completely cold is so low that you're going to be far better off just sending these one-liners. And then the PS line is kind of optional. We run some campaigns without if you want to stay more conversational, or if you're in a commoditized industry and you really want to show your value, you can use this as well. So we did something along the lines of PS, implemented this for a similar industry. Again, that's going back to the personalization in Clay, making it look like we know for sure what their industry is. In our case, we built a list of accountants, but there were some other financial firms in there as well. So this will make it very specific to them. And then we say, so similar industry company, and ended up booking them 47 calls in 45 days. So that just gives them an idea of what to expect, what kind of results you could generally see from the front end offer. This could realistically be any sort of piece of social proof or just anything that you really want to add to drive the point home. And we also ran an A/B test. So the first angle is going to be asking if it would be worth a quick chat. And the second angle is just going to be asking if they'd be open to hearing more. So it's a little bit more of a softer CTA instead of, forcing a conversation. It's just asking them if they have any interest in the idea at all. And this could lead to having a conversation still, or it could lead to sending a video or a sales asset or something along those lines. One twist I also like in the PS line is without pain point. So you could say, we implemented this for a similar industry company and ended up booking them 47 calls in 45 days without having to run any sort of ads or hire a bunch of people on their team. This just kind of gives them an idea of what it isn't, so they get a better idea of what it is. And then I won't get caught up too much on the follow-ups, but I will say that we make most of our campaigns a two-step sequence. You can stretch it to 3 if you really want, but I think in most cases you can get all of the value out in the first 2. The second one is always going to just be an elaboration of the first. So obviously the first one is front-end offer plus social proof. If there is information that isn't included there, you're just going to want to add it in this one. So again, this is just an example. This isn't necessarily like the exact thing that we use, but just to give you guys an idea, we stick to that conversational first line. So here you can see I almost used, I used also prior to the first name, making it look more like a text, less like an email. Forgot to mention, this implies like, oh yeah, there was this detail from the previous email that wasn't included that I meant to include, and that's why I'm reaching out again. With the campaign, we'd run for you to attract ICP, again, using that personalization from Clay. We'd also, and then, insert all of your deliverables. We also map out your entire total addressable market, create a strategic front-end offer for cold traffic, and build you an infrastructure to reach 100,000 prospects per month. Let me know if it's worth a few to chat. And then just the signature. So again, super conversational. You can see I'm even using things like LMK. You might not want to use this in super, professional industries. So maybe accounting, it might be a bit of a stretch, but in all other industries, you can be super casual. Again, you're just talking to humans. Everybody speaks in short forms and nobody really speaks in that sales lingo that most people use. And then from there, obviously set up your email accounts. We have the 837 that we talked about at the beginning and get those loaded up to launch. Now you know exactly how to set up this entire cold email system from scratch. But if you want to see the actual emails and targeting strategies that we use to book our client 47 calls in just 45 days, you can watch this video here and I'll see you there.